I would like you to picture a virus. What do you see? Perhaps you see a single viral particle infecting a cell. If you do, then you're not alone. The textbook image of a virus as a particle is taught in schools and in universities. It underpins scientific efforts to understand viruses, as well as medical efforts to treat them. But today, I would like us to begin to paint a new picture of what a virus looks like. And the first change to this textbook image is that no virus is ever really alone. Because by the time that a virus has finished infecting a cell, thousands of new copies of the virus burst forth, ready to start their own life cycles. What this means is that every virus always exists within a cloud of other viral particles, or perhaps within a community. And we're familiar with thinking about viruses as agents of disease that make us sick. But these viral communities do not just form when you or I get sick with a virus, they form wherever viruses are found, which, it turns out, is everywhere. Nowhere on Earth is safe from viruses, from the bacteria that line your gut, to the leaves of the houseplants inside your home, down to the deepest depths of the oceans. In fact, there are so many viruses on Earth that a single droplet of seawater contains 10,000 times more viral particles than there are stars visible in the night sky. But unlike stars in the night sky, this new universe of viruses has only come into view remarkably recently, made possible by our newfound ability to sequence and then read viral genomes anywhere they're found. And this new universe challenges us, because viruses are diverse and complex in ways that we do not understand, and they evolve in ways that we don't predict. Indeed, standing here in 2024, the threat of pandemics is an ever-present reminder to us that we really have no idea what it is that viruses are going to do next. And so it's not just that it would be nice to have a new, richer vision of viruses. It is essential if we are to match this new, rich, dangerous world of viral diversity. And that's where I come in. So though I'm speaking to you today about viruses, I was not originally trained as a virologist, but rather as a naturalist. And the ideas I'm going to put forward today do not just come from virology, but from evolution, from mathematics, from economics and the social sciences. My scientific journey began by taking ideas from these different disciplines and using them to help to understand the most puzzling kinds of animal social behavior. Behaviors like cooperation, conflict, even altruism. And my scientific journey has taken me to the discovery that viruses are social too, in many of these same ways, and that if we can understand the rules of viral sociality, then we might start to make sense of viral diversity too. But naturally, it's somewhat more challenging to study sociality in viruses, at least for us as humans, because viruses can't speak and they don't have brains. And so it's not so obvious to us what a social interaction even looks like for a virus. It turns out that viruses do interact socially, in truly fundamental ways. And to see these interactions, we need to zoom in to what a viral infection physically looks like. Now, viruses reproduce by hijacking our cells, within which they construct assembly lines for pumping out new copies of the virus. So you can think about an infected cell as a little bit like a virus factory. But these are not just any factories, these are living factories that keep on growing as each new virus coming off the assembly line can add its own machinery to the collective endeavor. This means that viruses don't just form communities when they're particles, they also form communities when they're inside us. And it is social interactions within these communities taking place at the molecular level that allows the most essential evolutionary process of all, reproduction. And this intrinsic importance of sociality for viruses has far-reaching consequences. So on the one hand, more viral workers might be able to make the assembly line go faster. And if those workers can accomplish different tasks, then the community of viruses as a whole might achieve more together than any one virus could alone. And when viruses play by the rules in this way, we call them cooperators. But viruses don't always play nice. Turns out that not only are viruses very good at hijacking our cells, they're also amazing at hijacking one another's factories. Some viruses can't build factories of their own at all. Instead, they specialize entirely on getting inside factories built by cooperators and sneaking onto the assembly line to be replicated without contributing. When viruses break the rules in this way, we call them cheats. And I promise that is the technical term. And cheating pays for viruses. All around the viral world, we find species of viruses that specialize entirely on being a cheat. In fact, inside most of us in this room right now is a type of viral cheat called an adeno-associated virus that lies in wait harmlessly inside you. And when you get infected with a common cold virus, it will activate to exploit that virus. And it's not just other species that viruses have to worry about either. Mistakes can happen in the viral replication process. And if one of those mistakes destroys the ability to cooperate, then a cooperator virus can very literally give birth to a lineage of cheat viruses whose descendants will then exploit their own ancestors. And so these viral communities exist in a state of constant evolutionary tension between these two poles of sociality, between cooperation and conflict. Now, I think that this is an exciting way to think about viruses. But from a scientific perspective, this is better than exciting. This is useful. Because cooperation and cheating are not just words, they're evolutionary strategies. And sociality is not just a metaphor, it's a toolkit that allows scientists such as myself to draw upon more than a century of work in other disciplines to start to mathematically predict what viruses are going to do next. And in this case, because cooperation and cheating are types of social interaction, we can use a branch of mathematics called game theory that was originally developed when there's human conflict over economic resources. Except in this case, our currency is not money, it's evolutionary success. And we're not trying to predict human behavior, but rather the action of natural selection within a viral population. And I would like to walk through exactly how we do this right now. So we're going to start by imagining a community of cooperator viruses, and we're going to track what happens when a cheat lineage is born within that community, starting from just a single viral individual. Now, a community of cooperators is fertile ground for cheating, because there are lots of factories around that have been built by the cooperators that the cheats can sneak inside and use to be replicated. When they do this, they leave behind lots of offspring, which means in evolutionary terms, the cheats become rich. But this wealth has come at a cost that is borne by the cooperators. Because if a cooperator builds a factory that a cheat then uses, the cooperator leaves behind fewer offspring, and so it is now poorer in evolutionary terms. And if the cheats keep getting richer, while the cooperators keep getting poorer, then we can end up in a world where no cooperators get born at all, which means no viral factories get built, which means the infection is over. Now, this process that I have described is a specific example of a more general phenomenon that is going to be familiar to you from your own social life. This is the tragedy of the commons. If everybody played by the rules, if everybody cooperated, then everybody would be richer. But at the same time, there is a short-term, selfish temptation to cheat, to break the rules, to make yourself richer at the expense of everybody else. And in viruses, one outcome of the tragedy of the commons can be extinction. But things are not always so predictable in viruses, because viral factories are complex, with multiple moving parts, which means there's more than one way to be a cheat. So now I would like us to return to our community of cooperator viruses, and this time we're going to track what happens when two types of cheat are born, each one exploiting a different, essential part of the viral factory. Now, once again, when we run the numbers and let the cooperators and cheats battle it out, if the cheats keep getting richer and the cooperators keep getting poorer, then the cooperators can go extinct. But this time, there's a difference. Because if the two types of cheat meet each other inside a cell, then the factory can still get built, which means the two types of cheat remain, each keeping the other in the game. So now the tragedy of the commons has not led to extinction, it's led to a transition to an entirely new way of being a virus. Now, the beauty of evolutionary theory is that we can explore possible worlds in this way. We can ask, what if? But the beauty of virology is that viruses have evolved into nearly endless forms, so viruses can show us, what if? And it turns out that this type of virus is not just hypothetical. It actually exists. About 20% of the viruses that infect plants have split apart their genomes in this puzzling way, and their evolution has long been a mystery. But by taking this new, richer vision of viruses, by thinking about the types of social interaction that can take place within a viral community, we've come up with one possible new evolutionary explanation for this great mystery of the viral world. And at the same time, viruses have taught us something new about evolution itself. That conflict does not have to be a destructive force, but that conflict can also be creative. Now, this interplay between evolution and virology, using the logic of natural selection to unravel the mysteries of viruses, and then using the answers to those mysteries to teach us something new about evolution itself, this interplay keeps me up at night. But there's another thing that keeps me up at night, and this might keep some of you up as well. Another pandemic will come. We don't know where from, but one thing we do know is that the viruses that make us sick are the ones that can cooperate inside us to turn our cells into viral factories. And another thing we know is that viral cooperation is vulnerable to the tragedy of the commons. And so cheating is not just a theoretical concept. It could be a new type of antiviral strategy that we could deploy not just against one virus, but potentially against them all. And so our challenge is not just to explain how viruses have evolved historically. Our challenge is to understand the rules of viral sociality so well that we can predict the future consequences of manipulating them. And so once again, I would ask you to picture a virus. This time, I would like you to picture not a solitary particle, but a community that plays by its own rules. I would ask you to imagine if we could learn those rules, if we can understand the social lives of viruses, and if we can rise to this challenge, then maybe the next time there's a pandemic, it won't be us giving up our social lives to stop the virus. Perhaps we can force the virus into giving up its own social life.